Scott Raine. Okay, we went over this yesterday morning at some length, and the committee basically approved the FY 2011 projects as they came out in support material, with the exception of changing on project 6A, which is the first page. If everybody goes to that. Project 6A, proposed budget for fiscal year 2011 based on wildlife service charges, change that from $34,845 to an amount of $90,000. And that was basically the extent of that. Everything else was approved. It was also noted that one line that was confusing some individuals, the administrative overhead for wildlife services 2010 being $56,100. That money is actually contained within, that is not a separate amount of money. That amount of money that's there with overhead is actually contained within each of these other proposals. When you're seeing the $17,000, when you're seeing the their overhead's already within that. That's not additional money. That's basically what we came up with. Public comment first, and then come back to commission. Mr. Yannick.
Thank you. Gil Yannick speaking as a private citizen. The difference between the $36,000 and the $90,000, where's the money coming from?
There was significant amount left over, and you notice the total budget amount was $552,449. Add up the rest of the projects, and and actually after this money is budgeted, there still leaves an amount approximating $48,000 left over for other purposes.
Okay, so that's where the balance. Thank you.
Out of the yes. Public comment, Mr. Belden.
For the record, Mel Belding, Washington County. I seen I attended the meeting yesterday, and there was a figure that seems $175 an hour for a fixed wing airplane. That's listed on 26 when I asked for. Through the chair, I'd like to know what other people pay for the fixed wing aircraft that use the services of wildlife services.
That's project 22.
Okay. Did we have something? Do you happen to have those figures on you, Mr. Jensen, or is that probably? Do you have that present? No. But I do know there's reasons for different numbers. If you could kind of remember hearing all that before, clarify for the public, please. All right. I think we're going to get that.
For the record, Mark Jensen, State Director, USDA Wildlife Services. There's basically two rates that we have throughout the state. One is the $175 an hour that we use for the flying that we do for the Department of Wildlife. And then we also have a rate that we have for the grazing boards, and that's $70 an hour. And again, that goes back to a long history that we have with the grazing boards. And again, my main function with the Department of Agriculture is to protect Nevada's agriculture. And so I use my federal appropriation that I have for protecting livestock to supplement the $70 an hour to fly our aircraft. And that's why there's a different rate for flying to protect wildlife than there is for flying to protect.
Because you're utilizing federal funding to make up that difference.
That's correct.
Basically. Okay. That's it.
I'd just like the record to show that as a sportsman and paying the $3 fee that I don't think sportsmen should have to pay twice as much as what other people have to pay. You know, the biggest thing yesterday was about how expensive these projects are, and this certainly adds to that cost, Chairman, and I think we should be getting the same rate as anybody else. There's a substantial amount of money that sportsmen spend on these predator projects, and there's no reason that we get charged 200% more.
All right,
Thank you.
public comment? Seeing no public comment, close public hearing. Yeah, basically I'll just go back over a little bit on the flight ideas. My understanding is it deals with federal appropriations, federal laws, and we don't have a lot to say over that. It'd be nice if we could get the federal government to go ahead and fund more of all of our projects, but if somebody can talk to Congress, we're there. I think that's above power of this commission on this agenda item. However, it's a great idea if we could get it passed. It's beyond us today. Commission, excuse me. We have Commissioner Lent, Commissioner Pearl, we'll move on down.
Chairman Raine, I had two, and I attended the meeting also, but I want to make two comments here. One was on Project 25, and I think Commissioner Wallace made the motion last year that the $25,000 was contingent on a match, and the match is almost assured, but I think the committee was positively assured, guaranteed the match, even though it's not here yet. They guaranteed the match would be there, but I think the motion last year was the match was supposed to be here, so I want to put on record that the $25,000 match is guaranteed. Is that right?
That was what we heard at the committee meeting, and it basically was the match is assured, and actually the one paragraph there about the selection of the PhD candidate, the PhD candidate has already been selected. So that portion that's in the interview status, it's beyond the interview status, they've already been selected at this point.
The other question I had on the wildlife services specialist, $85,000, was that ever broken down? Because last year, I think there was $4,000 to $5,000 to attend seminars and stuff like that. It wasn't all salary. Are we going to pay for the wildlife specialist to send predator seminars? Are we paying for any of that?
I don't believe that's the case, but Mr. Jensen, that's budget. If you could briefly explain there.
Again, Mark Jensen, State Director, Wildlife Services. Again, the money that we had in there for the wildlife specialist position, that was all for work on the ground. That other money that you're talking about, I think that's within the Department of Wildlife's portion, and because we don't send anybody to any seminars, all of ours is work on the ground.
And also, just one thing that came up is that you mentioned there's also, with this approval of this budget, if it does go through as it is, there'd have to be a change to an appropriate, some appropriations within the state.
There is currently an agreement that's between the Department of Wildlife and the Department of Agriculture. That agreement currently says $400,000, or not to exceed $400,000. So if the approved budget exceeds $400,000, the Department of Wildlife, I guess, and the Department of Ag would have to work together to amend that agreement to have that number reflect whatever is approved by the commission. Is that right, Ken?
Right.
Okay, just wanted to make sure that was out here. Mr. Pearl?
Before you leave, Mark,
Yeah, don't go too far.
All right, all right.
the difference on Project 26 between 85,000, which was basically, I think, last year's amount, and the 98,727.50, could you explain that?
Remind Project 26. That one was.
That's the Wildlife Services Field Specialist.
Yeah, and I can't remember the history of exactly what those numbers are. Again, that wildlife specialist position, that just gives us the flexibility to provide the ground crew. I can't remember exactly the history of the 85,000 versus the other, but
What it seems
whatever.
like is this is more refined, and you have you may have some increased expenses
And
that
that's-
have been involved with this.
That's no doubt it, but again, whatever the commission decides, we'll make it fit.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes?
and further, because he's up here, the other comment I wanted to make was, I believe that we made an adjustment on Project 18. If we went to the 90 on the other, you indicated
Oh, we
that you
could-
wouldn't need to have the 102,000. You could get by with the 93,564.
On Project 18.
For Project 18, which was the Washoe County tier.
That's
Because
correct.
part of that included your flying, which is included in item number 22.
That's correct. If we reduce the budget in Project 18, we would in effect be reducing the flying in there, but we could fly that with what the money that's in Project 22 anyway, so.
So that total then came down to,
93,564, I think is what we came up with.
right. Also, the reason for the $90,000 recommendation in Project 6A is, and we hit on this a little bit yesterday, this has been an ongoing thing, and we basically we've given you $15,000 to do partial work, basically, is what it amounts to. And you're pretty much restricted to do as much as you'd like to do in that area, or as much as needs to be done. And that was never more spelled out than by a picture that showed in the Ford Guzzler 3 lions watering at the water hole, probably waiting for sheep and other animals to get there. Also, a few days later, as I understand it, a mile and a half, 2 miles away, at another water structure, that there was a lion on a kill, on a bighorn sheep kill. But my point is this, that we have at least 4 identified lions in this situation, and probably many more in that area. So it's our belief, and the reason we suggested increasing this amount was so that you could put a full-time person such as you have in the Washoe County situation under Project 18. Is that your understanding?
That's correct. That's my understanding of the commission's wish.
And also, one thing I did not mention earlier was we had discussed at fairly great length in the committee meetings about some changes you're going to make to the program, about how the money was going to be utilized, different methodologies. If you could give us the nutshell version of that.
Yeah, we just discussed that with the $15,000 that we've had previously, that the time frames and the weather and the heat and how we've went down there and looked at that area in the wintertime using basically just using hounds and looking that over. Again, if the commission decides to fund that with a full-time person, then we could have somebody there year-round. We could use all of the tools available to us and mirror what we're doing in the Washoe County project. So it would again be a full-time person, all available tools.
And I think also we'd mentioned that in a couple of the other projects, you'd be utilizing perhaps more tools than had otherwise been used for perhaps in talking about the Virginia mountains, as opposed to just utilizing lion hounds. We might utilize other methodologies as well.
And again, that's correct. If areas are identified by the department that we need to work, absolutely, all available tools.
Okay. Mr. Macbeth, comment, question?
I received some contacts from some of my constituents about the Delmars, and they're very concerned about that. You know, I've obviously seen the photos. Some questions that were posed is, obviously, if these lions are sitting on water and waiting for sheep to come, how is Wildlife Services going to deal with that from the standpoint of, you know, can you run dogs on dry ground in the summertime and heat in the Delamars, because you're in southern Nevada now, it's a whole different ballgame. Are there other methods that will deal with the time period in the summertime when those lions are on, you know, or potentially on that water, if that's the case?
You're correct. we've got to be flexible on what we're doing here, because obviously the pictures show lines there in the summertime. Again, we've focused what we've been doing down there in the wintertime. Again, if we do have the funding available, we're going to have to change up in what we're doing. And that's, again, probably going to use call boxes and snares and change up. We're going to have to change what we're doing down there. And we readily admit that, and I've got 2 personnel down there right now looking for those lines. So,
We'd gone over quite a few techniques like that, and that was basically it. And you stated perhaps that the use of hounds would be
sure,
Greatly
when
reduced
it's 110,
communication.
you just can't run dogs. You just can't do it. So we gotta be flexible. We gotta change up what we're doing. We readily admit that.
And we're hoping to duplicate the effects of our other project, Project 18, in another area. Commissioner Pearl, and then we'll look down this way.
One more brief comment. One other thing we talked about, and I think the photo brings it out. The photo that was taken with the use of a trail camera that an individual who had been monitoring that Ford water site, when he picked up the disc or whatever, however he was able to get hold of it, must have been very surprised to see those lions in there. But that is a tool that I think everybody recognizes that, like it or not, it's going to be a major element of monitoring things. The question becomes later on as to whether or not it should be used during hunting seasons or not. But for our purposes, it would be much better if you had equipment that gave you instant information as to whether or not lions are on those water features and that. That technology is there, and I realize there's problems with cell towers and the like, but we ought to be employing the latest information to give us a jump on and spending the money the easiest way, best way we can.
Hopefully the we singular. Oh. Okay, go with them.
Thank you, Mr.
Mr.
Chair.
Wallace.
I'm going to bring up what I brought up yesterday. I've gone through and I've added up all the projects. And with all the projects, I come up with a total of $496,290.28. Okay. And then there's the Endow budget in there that should be around $90,379. That's what it was last year. When you add those two together, you get $586,69.28. And we have an estimated 2011 budget of $552,449, leaving us a $34,220.28 shortfall, unless I'm missing something in this budget that's showing that not there. And I'm gonna qualify this by saying I'm not against the area, the Project 6A, the Delamar Mountain, increasing that money, but I'm not sure where we're gonna come up with this extra money unless I missed something in yesterday's discussion.
I think that was fairly well covered in yesterday's discussion in the matter of it's what the Endow's budget, the way the money was coming out, should not be coming out in the manner in which it is. They should not be coming out of, some money should not be coming out of $3 fund, and that's basically, that has been coming out in the past.
So if we don't budget for their money, who's gonna put these projects together? Who's gonna do the work? Where are we going? Can you answer that for me, please?
With, let's see, what was the number, $56,000. If that's not sufficient to come together with I guess an example would be simply all these projects are basically continuances of a previous year's project with a few changes. There is some staff time involved in some of that. If that's not sufficient time, funding, then we have a real issue. I think that's kind of what, that was at least my opinion. The rest of the committee had their own opinions. So we had somebody else down here, and then we'll go back. Mr. Vogler, I believe, had.
Thank you, Chairman Raine. I wanted to ask Mr. Jensen about the federal money that's used. The airplane still costs 170 something an hour to fly, no matter what.
Well, if you actually break down the costs, then the last time that I run the numbers, it's probably between $225 and $250 an hour to run an aircraft. Anybody that knows the maintenance costs, the fuel costs, the pilot's costs, the gunner costs, it costs even more than the $175 to run an aircraft. So we feel that we're being a good partner. We appreciate the support of the Department of Wildlife. We feel like we're being a good partner at the 175 rate. Again, with the grazing boards and my federal appropriation to protect Nevada agriculture, there's a long history that goes back with that partnership. So you're correct that that's what that appropriation is for. But again, we feel we're being a good partner at the rate of 175.
And a few short years ago, there was not money available through the depredation, the $3 fee. Your entire program is run with the funds that was provided either through the Sheep Commission or through the grazing boards and other things like that. And like the White Pine County Grazing Board has gone from $150,000 after all the ranches are purchased. I think we had, what, $27,000 last year to deal with?
You're correct. The money that we've had in the past to run the program was through the grazing boards and the sheep head tax, and then the federal appropriation, and then of course the money that we got through the state Department of Agriculture.
And my last question, and I'll leave you alone. When you take out a coyote, not only will he not kill one of my sheep, he will not kill one of Nevada Department of Wildlife sheep either, will he?
I don't think they would discriminate.
What about his offsprings? Would there be any offsprings?
No.
So there is a symbiotic relation.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Very good, Mr. Pearl.
The issue that was brought up by the Commissioner Wallace was brought up yesterday. We discussed it. Here's the crux of the issue. We're dealing with a $3 fee that's assessed to all hunters who apply for tags. The way the language is written pretty much indicates that it's to be used for the control of predators. So I think we have an obligation to put as much of that $3 as possible into that effort. Now, the Wildlife Services has to, by law, apply a 16.15% administrative cost. Is that correct?
That's correct. For all of our agreements, for all entities, we charge a 16.15% administrative charge for all dollars spent. So again, if our budget is this much and we only spend this much, we apply 16.15% to those dollars spent.
And that's why the figure that was on the sheets here was for administrative overhead was $56,100. That was your administrative cost to run these programs. I guess my point is this. You are on contract with the Nevada Department of Wildlife for these services here. You have the bulk of the responsibility for carrying forth and providing updates and the like with respect to how this money or how the money is being spent and the results of it you provide to us. I understand that there's a cost to the department to help to monitor it, but by my figures and that amount that's being assigned is over 15%. To me, I think that there's an automatic, I don't know whether it's automatic that they assign that kind of overhead to it or exactly how they do it. But our point was as much of this money as possible should go to projects. And that 15 or 16% on their part to monitor what you're doing with this money is excessive. So that was the reasoning why. It had nothing to do with anything you said or anything you've proposed or anything else. This was simply the committee feeling that they could administer their end of it with the funds that are still available in that, and that there should be as much of an impact on the issue of predation as possible, instead of spending it all for administrative costs.
All right. Okay, Mr. Macbeth, and then we'll go down to some bills. Any final comments? We'll move on.
Okay, now, so following up on Commissioner Wallace and Commissioner Capurro, are the materials that I have not correct as far as the numbers? And if that's the case, could we please,
And we can go back and go over the committee recommendations. Let's go. Project 6.
The 90,000 from the department is not in here.
Yeah, there's some money that's not in here. There was some other costs that are not in here.
What the department assigns as cost is not in here.
so it's not a part, so the administrative overhead, the 16.15, that is solely wildlife services?
And that is contained within each of these proposals. So like in the first project, say, the 90,000, they will be contained within that 90,000. We don't have to come up with money on top of that.
Again, the 16.15% is applied to dollars that we spend.
For your actual spend?
Yes.
Not on their overhead?
No, I didn't have
Okay,
anything
so
to do with.
Where is the department's overhead for running the program?
It's the $90,000 that,
But it's not in this,
We have, what was our total here? We were at 496, 298, or 291, approximately $496,300. And it would be the money between that and the total estimated budget for 2011, which is $552,449, which leaves approximately $56,000.
okay, I guess I'm not seeing the 490s.
Okay, the 496, 298 is the total if you add up all the projects. That's not added on here. That is, in my understanding, that's 90,000 for project 6A. Project 18, 93,000.
So this 90,000?
90,000, project 6A.
Okay,
Project 18, 93,564.
okay,
Project 20, 17,678, 3 cents. Project 21A, $16,261. The project 21B money actually comes out of that 21A money, so that's already included. Project 22, $145,187. Project 23, $9,872.75. Project 26, $98,727.50. Project 25, $25,000 even.
okay, just going back to 21B, what was it again?
21B, the money, that $2,000 listed there actually comes out of 21A's budget. And there's a reason for that, because it's sometimes spent, sometimes not. Down in Overton, depending on requests.
So we just
from-
ignore 21B?
So you can just ignore 21B. That's part of 21A.
And the number for project 18 was the 93 as opposed to the 102?
93,564.
And that totals up to, also all of that totals up to what?
496.
496,
291.
291. And how much money do we have?
That'd be the bottom line on your back page, that bottom number.
552, 449, and then the, just do the math for me, that's the 56 number?
Yes.
Yes.
The
Mr. Chairman.
56,000, and what is it? 56
Even.
even, okay.
Basically.
And,
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
and so that
Finish them then.
56,000 is the budget for Endow to administer the damage.
Prepare these projects.
But their request was originally 90,000? Is that what I'm hearing? Just, I want to understand.
That was the budget from last year.
I think if you look at the last
Okay, so
page, Mr. Chairman, if you look at the last page, it has
Yes.
$90,379 for NDOW FY '10.
Right.
Very last page.
I don't have that.
Very, very last page, beyond this.
Where it totals it up.
I don't see that.
I missed that number, never saw that on here.
Oh, no, here it is. 90,379. Right above there.
Yeah.
Where are you looking?
NDOW fiscal year 2000. And it's built into the 552.
Correct.
Here it is. There.
Okay,
Oh,
so
I
it's,
see it on that page.
so now
It's a
I'm
different
I'm understanding what Commissioner Wallace is talking about now, and I guess now what I would really like to understand is where's the department sit on their budget with regard to the creditor management
All right,
program?
first we had something from,
I
Yep,
just-
and then we'll see if we
I
can
just
get you.
wanted to remind the committee that we talked about, our budget was the 420 something for 2010. We only spent the 400, so I know that there's at least a $24,000 rollover that I don't know is included in the funds available. And there's been rollover funds that have been in that account that's went on for years. I don't know what the rollover balance is, but I know at least 24,000 from our budget rolled from 10 to 11, so I'm just throwing that in there.
All right, we have something from, Vice Chairman?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Beth, did you get one of these like we got last year in 2010 that had all the data in it?
Yes.
You got one of those?
Yeah.
For 2011?
For 2011, did you get it?
Oh, I don't know if I got 2011.
Well, we did not get this for 2011. And if you look at the fiscal year 2010, it said estimated carry forward to 20 is 241,000. And then if you go looking at the carryover here, we got 142,000. And so the numbers from the last one I got here and this one doesn't jive. The carryover doesn't match. And I'd like to know where those additional funds went. But you've got to have one of these, and I don't think they developed one of these for us, a complete synopsis of the predation management plan. I did not see that this year. And so I think the carry forward number, there's 100,000 that disappeared somewhere, according to my numbers.
Should be fairly well within budget. Anybody else in the commission? Questions, comments? Motions? Oh, Mr. Macbeth?
Yeah, so I guess following up, I think I really need to understand how the department, what the department is saying with regard to this. It looks like
Okay.
their budget for administering the wildlife damage management program is being cut by about $34,000. Can we get at least a comment from the department on that?
Sure. Secretary Mayor or somebody?
Sure.
Send somebody?
I wasn't at the meeting, subcommittee meeting. This is new to me. This is budgeted out of the predator fee pot of money. I need to talk to council as well as Deputy Director Cates, what flexibility we have, but, sure.
For the record, Larry Gilbertson, Department of Wildlife. As most of you know, our predator management staff specialist recently resigned. And before he left, we had a meeting with Mark, went over to his shop, and we sat down. And one of the problems I see is the report that you guys have been getting every year is, if you read it, what in fact Commissioner Lent just mentioned, preliminary or whatever. And so the problem is that that report has been written before all the final, that year's fiscal was completed. And so my staff specialist would put an estimated carryover and an estimated expense and that type of thing. So that report is, I would say, is a little bit premature. And so what we did is sat down with him, and he estimated the department's costs, and he looked at the carryover, and I believe the 24,000 that Mark mentioned of carryover was estimated in Kevin's carryover. So what we did is we sat down with Mark and told him that after we take out what Kevin expected the department to spend, then the dollars that were left was what we came up with for these projects that we gave you. So we distributed the money accordingly based on what we had left. And it's the one project that has flexibility. Is that 22? That's the one where we have some flexibility to move money around because it's a more general nature. So that's what this year's budget is based on, was my staff specialist's best estimate of what was going to be carried forward, and then taking out what he expected the department's expenses would be, then taking that amount and sitting down with Mark and working out the numbers that he needed to have in these projects as he identified. So that's where the numbers came from that you are looking at to approve.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner. That's what a way to run a business. I don't see how you can do that. You've got to come up with a sheet, a financial sheet at the end of the year to say exactly and show us where you transferred it. I mean, I can't follow it, and I think Gil from Car City as a businessman would tell you that. If you're going to transfer funds, you've got to show it on paper for this committee or this commission, and to say, well, this is an estimate, this is an estimate, and without the numbers, and we didn't even get a complete financial report this year. And I attend the committee, and I don't know how in the heck you can know right from left and where the dollars are and estimated carryovers and stuff, and you transfer it from one project next without showing exactly a spreadsheet where it's at. You're keeping us in the dark. Thank you.
Mr. Cates, you can shed light on all the financial issues of the world, please.
Well, I'll try to. I didn't participate in this meeting, so I don't know exactly what the balance of the predator fee is today, but I can tell you, I talked about this in the Finance Committee on Thursday, that up until 2 weeks ago, we didn't even have final disposition of all of our FY10 revenue, which includes the predator fee. I mentioned at that time that we had a $6 million bolus of I guess I would call it unearned income from Draw 5 that had not been allocated. So we've only been aware of how much money we even collected in FY10 within the last couple of weeks, and I haven't even seen the final fund balances of all the fees. Of all the fees. I hope to see that next week. But I mean, just the timing of having committees review this stuff. The best they can give you is estimates of what those balance forwards are going to be. But $6 million is roughly half of our fee-based revenue for the year, and that amount was unknown up until 2 weeks ago.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Commissioner Raine. Then, that's like having a check account saying you don't know what the balance is. How do we know how much to spend if we don't know the balance? I mean, these are numbers that we got to have pretty close if we're trying to allocate these funds. How can you do them when you don't know how much money you got in the creditor account?
Well, state fiscal year 10 doesn't close basically until October. And it's, with the draws, the money sits out there. Some of it ends up getting refunded. We know basically the total amount of money, but how much of it is for tags, how much of it's for predator fees, that's not known until those reconciliations are done. And it's my understanding that SEI had some difficulties. It was a little bit delayed on their end in getting the reconciliation done. Not terribly, not out of the norm, but we generally don't know the final disposition of a fiscal year's numbers until late July, end of August even.
All right, Commissioner Pearl?
Yes, sir. The question was raised with respect to what was which we have in hand, which was the fiscal year 10 predator management situation, which showed one ending balance, carry forward figure. That was the $240-some thousand. And then we have this year's, which shows it as $142,000. What is the difference?
Yeah, well, that's my point. I mean, those are estimates, and I don't know. I didn't prepare those numbers, but they're estimates.
What is the, Chairman Raine?
Go ahead, Mr. McBeth.
Is the 142 an estimate, or is it the carry forward? Is that what the department is saying, is the 142 is the carry forward?
It's an estimate.
That's what it says.
Just write checks.
And the 200, was it an earlier estimate?
last year's estimate.
I believe that was last year's estimate. I don't know if, I've been here less than a year, but I don't know if this particular committee has ever seen the final. They've just been given estimates because of timing, so.
Well, one reason,
And I guess my final and follow-up question, and it's not a follow-up question, it's my original question that I'm not sure I can answer to. Based on what Commissioner Wallace brought up, it looks like there is $56,000 in this budget that we're going to approve, if we approve it the way that it's been laid out, for the Department of Wildlife to run the program. And I guess my ultimate question is that going to be enough? But because I see that you had an estimate that it was going to be $90,000.
That's correct.
And if it's not going to be enough, what are the ramifications of that? I mean, are things not going to get done? I think that was ultimately Commissioner Wallace's question. If there's not going to be enough in the budget for the department to run this program, is everything going to come to a screeching halt?
a couple people.
We're going to fund the position.
Let's take that.
We're going to fund the position at 90,000, and if it has to come out of reserve, that's where it'll come, out of reserve of the Predator project. There's no other way around it. There's not a pot of golden money sitting somewhere that's unallocated that we're going to spend. So I need to look at that. I need to talk to legal, what we can and what we can't do. But
Okay, we'll have Mr. Cates, then we'll have Mr. Capurro, Mr. Howell.
If I could just add to that, this also is kind of consistent with some comments I made yesterday. I mean, that number, a lot of that goes to staff salary, and it depends how much time that staff spends on predator management issues. Kevin Lansford, the most of the money that was spent would have been towards his salary. That position's now vacant. How long it takes to fill, how much time they spend doing this versus other activities will determine how much money is needed. But certainly, if you're going to fund it at a lower level than was last year, that may create some issues with staff time and being able to code to that.
Okay. Mr. Capurro?
Okay, I think the point is that nobody's going to go without a paycheck. I think if I read what the director has said is that if you are short, you may have to take it out of unused reserve. But our whole point in dealing with this issue right from the start has been that perhaps the decision that you folks made a long time ago to allocate against the $3 predator fee should be revisited on the part of the department, and that it is appropriate that more money actually hit the ground for that $3 predator fee than for administrative costs that are estimated a year ahead of time as to what your personnel are going to spend on.
And Defense Department, that'd be probably personnel that came long before you. So I think that's what he's referring to. Mr. Howell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I
mean-
believe I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay, well, Mr. Cavan, and then we're there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I still see us as $34,000 short, and I understand the philosophical differences in how the money should be spent, but if we don't fund this position, I'm not sure how we have a program. But a question with history, and maybe Director Mayer, I'm not sure we had the position that Kevin Lansford filled. Did we have that before we had predator management fee?
in fact,
Or-
Russell was the predator biologist for a while. It was vacant when I came and became director. That was one of the first positions that we recruited for and actually filled. So there was a hiatus between when Russell left and went up north and took the position he did and the time that Kevin Lansford was hired. about 3 years ago.
The question though is, did we have that position before the predator management fee came on board?
Larry, do you know? It was well before my time.
There's some other stuff. Yeah. All right, let's do that. We'll have one comment here, and then we'll move on to.
When AB 291 was signed to create the Predator program, the $3 fee, the position was filled almost immediately to create that Predator position to administer that program.
You familiar with what percentage of the salary of that predation permission position came out of the $3 fee, approximately?
It's been roughly that $90,000 a year since its
My
inception.
understanding is it was approximately 1/3 of his salary came out of this, and the rest of it was for other personnel, including meetings, the mileage, the
Correct.
game chief coming to the commission meetings, which probably should have come out of the commission budget, not out of the $3 fee.
It's paid for in the past, and I've been out of the position for a number of years now, but when I was in there, it paid for the secretarial staff, the administrative aid staff in the office to help with paperwork, and there was a bunch of different personnel salaries that were paid for specifically working on the Predator program.
Fair enough. All right, I think we're down to that, ready for a motion. Mr. Howell indicated readiness for that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this time, I move that we approve the committee's recommendation for Predator projects for 2011. And I'm going to read them off and the dollar amounts. Project 6A, $90,000. Project 18, $93,564. Project 20, $17,678.03. Project 21A, $16,261. And I would add that Project 21B is included in that number. Project 22, $145,187. Project 23, $9,872.75. Project 26, $98,727.50. At Project 25, $25,000. And I want to add the in the wording on Project 25 where it says contingent on match, it says match is almost assured. We struck almost because we were guaranteed that it has been finalized, the match.
And this selection has been made.
And PhD
Second.
candidate?
Pardon me?
A PhD candidate has been.
Where's that at?
It's on page 4.
And the PhD candidate has been selected.
Oh, yes. Oh, I did, I see what you're saying. I didn't read the rest of the sentence. Selection of the PhD candidate,
He has been.
he
selected.
has already been selected. Yeah.
Second it.
Okay, it's been moved by Commissioner Howell, seconded by Commissioner Lint to approve the fiscal year 2011 predation management projects. Does everybody understand the motion? Any questions on the motion? Mr. Beth?
Is the motion going to include any money for the department? Or is the 56,000 built into the numbers that were just read?
I think
This 56,000 is wildlife services. It's built in.
No,
No.
no,
that's what I'm talking about.
Mr. Chairman.
perhaps we can get some clarification on that. Mr. Pearl, you can.
Yeah, it didn't in the past either. In other words, we approved the project list, which is what you have here. And then the explanation in the other pages, they've put in the 90,379 in small print. But in the past, you've adopted a budget that was estimated at 552. That did not, or 631 last time. or 489, 375 prior to
Okay,
that.
so
So
which is-
that's what was approved.
leftover
They
is
have
what-
simply transferred in to
Okay,
cover
so
their administrative
We're,
costs.
we're merely approving projects.
That's correct.
Yes, we're
Okay.
moving the projects.
And so at what point in time do we deal with the department's budget for this program?
The department has to deal with that. As he indicated, they'd have to review it with with Mr. Cates and his council.
Okay, so we
So I'm
clear on the
I'm
motion.
getting the picture. I guess I actually support the projects, but I can't in the context of it not being done in conjunction with the department's budget to run the program. That makes no sense to me, so I guess I know, tell me how I'm gonna vote.
Fair enough. Any other questions on the motion? Clear? Seeing no further, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
All right. Did you get that? Good.
Wallace, Macbeth.
Wallace, Macbeth, and Cavan voting nay. Everybody else, the other 6 voting aye. And I voted aye for the record. Motion passes. 6-3. Let's move on to 22. Finance Committee report recommendation.